Gavin Newsom's political career just got hit by a freight train, and y'all better believe he did not see it coming. A whistleblower has stepped forward, pointing the finger directly at him. Congress just launched a full-blown federal investigation, and the numbers coming out of Los Angeles County are so outrageous that your jaw is going to hit the floor. We ain't talking about a little government waste here. We're talking about what investigators are calling $3.5 billion worth of hospice fraud in one county. Let that sink in for just a second. Now let me explain what hospice care is for folks who might not be familiar. When somebody is terminally ill, when they got maybe 6 months left on this earth, Medicare steps in and pays for end-of-life comfort care. That is a sacred program, y'all. It exists to help dying Americans pass with some dignity. It is funded by every single working person in this country who pays taxes out of their paycheck. And somebody, a whole lot of somebodies, figured out they could just steal from it. And it looks like the man running California, Gavin Newsom, knew about it for years and did not stop it. Here is where your blood is going to start boiling. The House Oversight Committee is now on record saying that Newsom's administration was aware of credible reports of hospice fraud for at least 4 years. 4 years. Not 4 weeks, not 4 months, 4 whole years. They got the state audit from back in 2022 that laid out every red flag you could imagine. Providers listed at the same address. Patients marked as terminally ill who later walked right out of the hospital alive. Excessive billing for services that were never even provided. Staff shared across multiple hospice operations running the same scam from different storefronts. The auditors handed them a roadmap to the fraud, and Newsom's people looked at it and apparently decided to go get a haircut instead of actually fixing anything. Now here is where it gets truly wild. Los Angeles County alone now has more hospice providers than 36 entire states combined. Let me say that again nice and slow. More hospice companies in one county than 36 whole states put together. The national average for Medicare billing per hospice patient is about $13,200. You know what LA County hospices have been billing? $29,000 per patient, more than double the national average. And some of them were billing as high as $74,000 per patient. That ain't a rounding error, partner. That is a deliberate heist. One investigator found a hospice location that had received $1.3 million in Medicare payments. He drove out there to take a look. You know what he found? Empty building. No employees, no equipment, no furniture, not a single chair. Just 4 walls and a whole lot of stolen money. Another spot had 42 different hospice providers registered within a single 4-block radius. Can you picture that? 42 hospice businesses on 4 city blocks. If you tried to explain that to your grandpa over Sunday dinner in Abilene, he would tell you that does not pass the smell test. Because it does not. There are more than 100 hospice and home health care agencies registered to a single address in the Van Nuys neighborhood of Los Angeles. 100 businesses, 1 address. The House Oversight Committee found that 18 Los Angeles County hospice providers, all using a single doctor's Medicare provider number, billed Medicare for 76,000 claims between 2021 and 2024. That comes out to nearly $600 million in billing from just those 18 providers. Nearly $210 million of that was billed in 2024 alone. That is not a systemic quirk or some clerical mistake. That is organized, coordinated theft from American taxpayers on a breathtaking scale. And here is where the whistleblower comes in and makes things real uncomfortable for Mr. Newsom. The whistleblower told investigators that California has practically no safeguards whatsoever to stop fraudsters from obtaining a hospice license. And here is the kicker. People living in foreign countries can obtain a California hospice license. You do not even have to be on American soil to get licensed to bill Medicare in California. Think about that for a second. Somebody sitting in another country entirely is pulling money out of your Medicare fund, and Gavin Newsom's operation was apparently fine with that arrangement. The whistleblower also describes schemes where fraudsters go out and recruit seniors, sick or not, and sign them up for hospice care in exchange for kickbacks, then sell those Medicare numbers and shuffle enrollees between providers before they stay too long and trigger any alarms. These are seniors being used like poker chips. And some of them did not even know they had been enrolled in hospice until they tried to use their Medicare for something else and found out it had already been billed. House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer from Kentucky was on television this week, and he was not beating around the bush. He said that $3.5 billion number represents more than 10% of the entire federal government's hospice bill for all 50 states. One county in California is responsible for more than 10 cents out of every Medicare hospice dollar spent in this entire country. And 18% of all hospice billing in the United States is coming out of Los Angeles County. 18% from one place. How does that happen without somebody in charge knowing something was real wrong? That is the question Congress is now officially demanding Newsom answer. Now, Newsom's people came out with a statement, as they always do, talking about how they revoked 280 hospice licenses and have 300 more providers under investigation. And look, that sounds like something. But y'all got to think about the math here. California has over 2,800 licensed hospice providers. They are telling us they revoked 280 while the fraud kept on growing to $3.5 billion worth. That is like a rancher bragging he found a few bad steers while his whole herd was being rustled through the back gate. The numbers do not add up, and the committee knows it. The California Attorney General his own self called this fraud an epidemic last year. His own words, an epidemic. So even the Democrats in California were admitting out loud that this situation was completely out of control. They just were not doing enough about it fast enough. Meanwhile, every taxpayer in America was footing the bill for what was happening in one of the most liberal-run places in the country. This same pattern was what Congress found in Minnesota. They investigated the social services fraud up there and uncovered widespread failures and a near total absence of real oversight. And now Comer is saying California looks the same way but bigger. Same playbook, bigger stage. Chairman Comer has given Newsom until April 6th to hand over documents and communications going all the way back to January of 2019. Every conversation between the governor's office and the state's health departments, every audit, every complaint, every internal email where somebody might have flagged this fraud and got told to look the other way. Here's what all of this really means, and y'all need to pay attention to this part. Gavin Newsom wants to be president of the United States one day. That has been his plan since the day he walked into Sacramento. But right now, there is a whistleblower saying he knew. There is a federal investigation deepening by the day. There is a state audit from 2022 that was basically a user's manual for the fraud that nobody acted on. And there is $3.5 billion that went somewhere while dying Americans and their families thought their end-of-life care was being handled with dignity. That is the shock of his career, and it is only getting started. This is your money, y'all. Not Sacramento's money. Not some politician's slush fund. Your money. Money that came out of your paycheck every 2 weeks your whole working life, so that when you or your mama or your daddy is laying there at the end, there is something there to help. Somebody decided that money was theirs to take, and it looks like the people in charge of stopping it either could not be bothered or did not want to know. And now Congress is knocking on the door, and the clock is ticking toward April 6th. What Gavin Newsom hands over in those documents is going to tell us a whole lot about what he actually knew and when he knew it.